If you had told me, Ephraim, and you're somebody who writes Hollywood stories for a living, if you had told me 6 months ago that the Belichick story would include a chapter coaching at North Carolina, I'd be like, Ephraim Salaam couldn't sell that. What are we talking about? That guy, Ephraim Salaam, couldn't sell that. There's no way. 72-year-old coach. Oh, let me get back to school, huh? How creative.
You know how I would have done it?
How?
So we all know it's a big hullabaloo about how young Bill Belichick's new girlfriend is.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So Bill Belichick, being his age, feels insecure about his girlfriend getting her master's degree at North Carolina. So not to feel like he's being overbearing, he decides to take a job there to keep an eye on her because, you know, he knows her being around co-eds, her age and things like that. He knows what college is.
Sure.
That's how I would have wrote it. Right? So now you have your boyfriend, who could be your grandpa, as the coach at the school you attend to get your master's degree, and that dynamic and all the things that ensue. And the starting quarterback falls in love with her.
And now coach for his quarterback.
And now do you bench him? Like that, as a writer.
Okay.
Right? You see how I put the spin on it right there?
I see.
Well, yeah.
So while it may not be that, while I am not banking that
that's the only way, though.
Love triangles between Bill Belichick and the North Carolina and all that. And I'm not sure about the status of his 24-year-old girlfriend's secondary education. I don't know if she got a master's or what. But I do know this. This is going to have a Hollywood ending. This North Carolina story. Look at the landscape of college football, Ephraim.
Mm-hmm.
Just 3 short years ago, Colorado football was 1-11 off of winning. I think they had won 4 games total in like 3 years or something crazy like that. Deion Sanders comes in. He brings his Louis luggage with him. Year 2, they're a game away from the playoffs. Right? A win away from the playoffs, and they're probably going to have the Heisman Trophy winner on Saturday night.
Yeah.
Indiana football
right,
is
Coach?
one of the 12 teams playing for a college football national championship right now. Indiana, if I had told you that 24 months ago, you'd said there's no way. But with Kurt Cignetti coming, and he didn't necessarily advertise it as such, but brought his luggage with him with the transfer portal. I believe the 20 kids transferred to Indiana.
11
starters.
Yeah.
So why can't Belichick also bring his luggage with him to North Carolina?
Because he doesn't have any luggage. He's not bringing players from another team where he's had ultimate success with.
Okay.
He's coming in cold turkey, so to speak. He's coming in trying to learn and understand the landscape that's already there. He's not bringing his own plants and grass and things for the backyard, the landscaping of it all. He's coming in like, they put grass over here. He's coming in cold, trying to learn how to do this and build it out the way he wants it. He doesn't have those players that he knows that he can trust. And that was the thing. Deion knew his son and Travis, both of his sons and Travis and some of the other guys they brought, he knew what they had to offer.
Sure.
Indiana coach, he knew those guys.
He
11 of those guys.
Battle with them before.
He knew, right? So they made the transition for their coaches easy because they can, in a sense, affect the culture of the locker room, right? You bring your leaders in. When I had played for Denver and I left and went to Jacksonville, and Gary Kubiak, who was our offensive coordinator in Denver, left and got the head coaching job in Houston, he called me and said, hey, man, I need you to come help me teach this O-line how we do it, to build a culture. That's what coaches do.
Right.
Belichick doesn't have any players to call and help transform that locker room. He's starting from scratch. He's using Mac Brown's guys.
Yep.
And so that's where I think it's a little bit different than Indiana and Colorado in terms of they brought their luggage.
I get that, so I can go with that. But if you've been Belichick, and the reporting is, and that's all we have to really go off of, is trusting the reporting, saying that he and Mike Lombardi and Josh McDaniels and whoever else is in the Belichickian brain trust have all been auditing auditing the league, seeing what jobs would be open, and then transitioning to college. So I hear you that they may not have, the actual physical players in hand. They don't have Shador and Travis Hunter or the myriad of guys brought from JMU and other places for Signetti. But it feels to me that there is a inefficiency at the top of college football along the lines of guys like Burton, the receiver for Cincinnati, who transfers from Alabama to Georgia, right? Because they got young kids coming in. Or you look at Ohio State starting Jeremiah Smith and Ryan Williams at Alabama, freshmen coming in. There are juniors and seniors that are getting pushed out of the door because of the new 5-star guy who's coming in, who's now making more money than them and been promised more than them because it costs more to get a recruit in the door these days. Mm-hmm. If I'm Belichick and I'm that brain trust, I would have to imagine that you see that if you're evaluating the transfer portal and you're now getting guys who have played a lot of college, like Arizona State had a lot of guys transfer in a year ago under Kenny Dillingham. But a lot of those guys had played a ton of college football already, so they were experienced already, and it immediately raised the floor of the roster. If I'm Belichick, I could tell a kid, you're a 6th-round pick right now. If you come here, I can teach you how to be I can make you a 3rd-round pick or a 2nd-round pick. And he's the guy who's been doing the picking.
That works, but that takes longer. That's a 3-year process. People are saying, well, look at North Carolina's schedule this year. This is a 10-win team. You don't have the players for it to be a 10-year team. They don't know who you are as a coach and what your expectations are, and you don't have anybody in that locker room that knows that. And so you have to unteach, or these kids have to unlearn, as the younger or new players coming in have to learn. That's the difference. And that's why I think this is if he can hang in there, I think in the 3rd year, when he's had 2 full years of recruiting, bringing in guys, really understanding what's out there in the portal, and establishing what the Tar Heel way is now based off what he did in New England, I think then can he go find his young Tom Brady? Can he do that?
Sure.
And change the trajectory of the school and the culture of that locker room. It's going to take a little bit of time.
So when I say it'll have a Hollywood ending, I have thought this probably starts out with a 7-5 to 5-7 year one.
Okay.
Then year 2, we're looking at 9-10 wins, competing in bigger games, right? Maybe you upset a Clemson. Maybe you upset a Miami down, on that run, depending on what Miami is now. Sean King just a minute ago alluded to the fact that they bought a 10-2 roster and was laughing as he said, who knows what the contracts will be like after the Pop-Tart Bowl, right? So, but I do think it's something fascinating, and I think that when you look at the landscape of college football, what it is right now, if you pluck the right kids from the wrong situations, you could really, it seems to me, really jumpstart a program.
Yeah, but you can't miss, and that's the difference. You're not missing with guys you bring in.
Okay, okay. So
you get what I'm saying?
Your point is you know that Shador Sanders is one of the best 3 quarterbacks.
You know exact. Travis Hunter's the best player in college.
Right.
Like, you know what you have. Now, in the case of Belichick, he's just hoping, and hope goes a long way, but not in sports.
Yeah, hope is a hell of a drug.
And so there's going to be a period of, oh, that's not the guy I thought it was. Oh, this doesn't work like this, like we thought this was. We like him, but there's going to be a lot of puzzle pieces, not to mention the kid they're going to lose to the portal. New coaches coming in, other guys going out.
Right.
Some of those kids on scholarships sitting in that locker room are like, oh, I didn't sign up for this.
Right.
This is a real thing. And so how many kids do you lose? And how do you replace them? How many starters are you losing? It's a lot of things that we don't know the outcome yet. We're just so captivated by this thing, the Belichickness of it all, going to college. There's so many nuanced things that have to happen that I don't even know if he's ready for yet.
No, I mean, and I would hope so. If you had all that time to write a 400-page manifesto of how you're going to go ahead and
But look at this. In 2 weeks, if he realizes 40 guys from the current team enter the portal, what do you do? Like, it's like, oh, snap. That's a reality. He may not, like, ego is important here. And one thing we know Coach Belichick has is an ego. All right? What does that do to your ego? Before you even really get your hands on these guys, they're ready to jump out the window. How do you deal with that? There's a lot. There's a lot. This is not the pros now. Like all those accolades and Tom and the championship, that has nothing to do with college football. Those are great stories. You can tell a kid, you remind me of Tom Brady, right? You remind me of Richard Seymour. You remind me of Willie Guinness. You can do all of that all day long.
Sure.
But those players are not those players.
Just a word of advice to North Carolina players. If Belichick tells you he reminds you of Mac Jones, hit the portal.
Go now.
One last question, because you're right. This is fascinating from so many different angles. But the one I'm thinking now is Belichick, more than probably any coach in college football, has more experience with dealing with measuring out the money to players to be able to, because you had a salary cap then. Now, there is an artificial cap at North Carolina. I don't think Michael Jordan is writing blank checks to the football program to get whoever you want.
He should. Phil Knight is for Oregon. They're number one in the country.
But you see, I think that those are not necessarily long-term sustainable. Like, how long is Phil Knight going to be?
Doesn't matter. What Phil Knight wants is a championship.
I get that.
They're about to get it.
So what I'm asking, though, is if once you get the one, maybe you get two, maybe that money dries up. Does the ability to manage a salary cap, as opposed to just having carte blanche and spending, does the ability to manage a salary cap factor into his level of success on the college level?
No, because it's not a true salary cap. It's not a true salary cap. You can bring in a quarterback and you can pay him, I think, what do they have? They're up to $18 million that they have to use. You can pay him $2 million of that, and the season doesn't go the way he likes it, and then he leaves with his money. So it's not a true salary. When you cut a player in the league, you're only on the hook for guaranteed money.
Right.
That's a lot of money to pay and to see walk out the door in a year. There is no 2-year, $10 million deal. If you leave before, you got to get some of this back.
See, the only thing that I will push back on is it felt that for some of his guys while he was in New England, Belichick would have rather signed you to a 1-year deal every year, and then have the conversation after games, after whatever the last game is.
But you're dealing with grown men.
Yeah,
you're now dealing with kids, but not only that, you're dealing with their parents. My mom or my dad weren't talking to my agent or to teams during free agency.
Right.
You're dealing with parents. You think Bill Belichick wants to talk to your dad about what you're not doing on the field and the money? And that he doesn't want to do that. That's another element, one of those nuances that we're not quite sure of.